Hi, welcome to Gotham Reader Radio. I'm your host, the Gotham Reader, and before we jump into today's issue, just have one correction from last video, which at the end I said Batman had left a note for Mrs. Jones. He actually left the note for the police. Sorry for the confusion. As for those who would like to follow along, I will be reading this issue out of Batman Chronicles once again. Luckily, this particular issue can be found in quite a few different Batman collections, including the Golden Age Anthology and Batman Archives. Of course, there's also the DC Universe, and it's also a backup to a OGN, but we'll just pass over that for now. And with that, we could just move into today's issue, which is Detective Comics number 31, published in September 1939, with cover art by Bob Kane, story being written by Gardner Fox with Bill Finger, and art being done by Bob Kane and Sheldon Moldoff. So more or less the same team from the previous issue, just now with Bill helping out Fox on writing duties. And I'm not going to reveal the title of today's issue because I think it spoils the big twist, which I'm personally going to keep to myself because I think it's one of the funner ones for these early Batman stories. But with that being said, also in general, I mean, a lot of these titles weren't included with the original issue. They're just now added to these collections for the reader's convenience. But with that being said, let's just move into the issue proper with the title page, which in my personal opinion is one of Bob Kane's best cover pages, in which we get this really almost eerie presentation of a castle, and then you have the imposing figure of the Batman behind said castle. We get to look at a mysterious man in a red, strange outfit with his face covered, and he seems to be abducting a woman. Plus, we also get a blurb to kind of give us an idea of what exactly we're seeing. Powerful and awesome, the mysterious Batman again appears to oppose the evil forces of a terrifying master of crime known as the Monk. So I'm going to say we could probably assume that this is the individual in question at the front. I guess just one other little thing that I really, really like about this cover is just how Bob Kane has Batman's silhouette, I guess, cutting into the Detective Comics, and he even gives the ears of the cowl a little bit of curvature that almost gives it a, I guess, supernatural look. I don't really know how to describe it. It just fits better with the panels. And then just in general, just the ears look really good, and Batman just looks super imposing on this cover. Next, we have our title panel, which for this issue is a little bit more on the simpler side. It's just a little image of Batman's face with his cape spread out, and then, of course, the Batman splash letters, and then our blurb for the issue, which the Batman, weird menace to all crime, at last meets an opponent worthy of his mettle. A strange creature, cowed like a monk, but possessing the powers of a Satan, a man whose powers are uncanny, whose brain is the product of years of intense study and seclusion. So already we have two panels hyping up our villain for today's issue, the Monk. And also, he is the first person to be worthy of, I guess, challenging the Batman, it seems, which, oof, if you're Dr. Death, that is just, I guess, not the best for your reputation. If you're Batman's first supervillain and you're kind of just looked over for the Monk. But with that in mind, let's begin the story proper, in which we get a very, very interesting start to an issue that we have not yet had, which we actually have Batman patrolling the city, and we actually do get a location. It seems to be that Batman is acting out of New York. We get this because the first panel says, "Through the dark of New York night." And for those of you who know, this is only going to be for a very limited time. Eventually, Batman is going to get a fictional city all his own. But for the most part, that fictional city is going to just be a fictionalized version of New York City. So for now, it should be perfectly fine for the setting, at least that people will become familiar with in regards to the Batman. While patrolling the night, Batman finds himself observing quite the strange situation where a woman in a nightgown seems to be attacking a poor fellow. But the woman seems to be under some type of strange trance, saying that she has been sent by the master monk. Batman, acting quick, pulls the old man to safety. But in this process, he noticed something even more peculiar than he initially thought, which is that this dangerous woman is none other than the fiancée of Bruce Wayne, Julie Madison. Acting quick, our legendary hero confronts his fiancée and shakes her out of her stupor. She doesn't seem to know where she's at, and Batman, fearing that he'll reveal too much to the woman, decides that he will take her home, but in that process once again remains silent, with his only parting words being, "Inform your fiancé Bruce Wayne of what happened tonight." We then move to a panel where we see exactly that, in which Julie Madison informs her fiancé Bruce Wayne of the absolutely strange night she had in which she was saved by a man dressed as a giant bat. Bruce Wayne, somewhat surprised by this, informs her that maybe we should take you to a doctor. Once they arrive at the doctor, he informs the young lady that she may be a victim of hypnosis, and that he advises that she takes an ocean voyage to help clear her head. He then zones out and he says, yes, an ocean voyage to Paris, and perhaps later to Hungary, the land of history and werewolves. Bruce seems slightly concerned by this response. Despite his concerns, Bruce Wayne still decides to follow through with the doctor's advice and buys Julie Madison a trip on an ocean cruise to Paris. Although he still holds his concerns, I think deep down he knows that the Batman might have to intervene if need be. We then cut to a series of panels taking place at Wayne Mansion, in which we see Bruce Wayne lamenting on what if Julie Madison were to ever find out that her future husband was none other than the legendary Batman. But he quickly puts this thought aside to prepare for the night he has ahead of him, in which we see Bruce Wayne reveal two new gadgets. First is the Batarang, a boomerang-like weapon inspired by the Australian outback. And then, in a secret hangar, we see one of Batman's other modes of transportation, the Batgyro. So a lot of information to unpack. Number one, oh my gosh, where do we even begin? So first things first, let's just talk about the general structure for this issue and just in general how much better it was than the previous one. In my personal opinion, Fox with Finger seems to be taking a little bit more time to set up the story, which really, I think, helps build tension, I guess, at least for me. There is still comic book wackiness that occurs for the story to happen, like what are the chances that Batman was going to come across Julie Madison of all people in these events, or that the doctor that he specifically took her to was hypnotized as well. But once again, we are in the world of comics. It is a bit of a stretch. I get it. But now on to the big news that we get in this story, that Bruce Wayne is engaged. So this is the first kind of real personal information that we get for Bruce Wayne. And while it doesn't seem like much, it does establish a few things. Number one, Bruce is, I guess, a capable enough human being to go land himself a woman. Two, she obviously doesn't know that he's the Batman from what we could tell from the story. So it makes one wonder just how is that going to complicate future storylines? Interesting development, to say the least. One other big thing I want to kind of touch on is when we see Batman's preparing for his adventure. One, we do get clarification that Bruce does live in a mansion. So to, I guess, further build on who is Bruce Wayne, we do now know that he's not a young playboy socialite, but he is a very wealthy young playboy socialite. But we could assume that due to the fact that more than likely it's not cheap to be the Batman, especially with the gadgets we're about to see. While one is quite humble, the other one is golden age comic book wackiness, I guess. Obviously, the first one I'm talking about is Batman's iconic weapon, the Batarang, based off of the boomerang from what we're provided with in the comic, which is really interesting because the way the Batarang works is going to evolve over the years, but for now, it's going to operate as Gardner Fox and Bill Finger kind of laid it out. The more interesting gadget is the Bat Gyro, I guess technically vehicle. For those of you who aren't familiar with what a gyroplane is, it is a type of plane that has a propeller system that allows it to hover in the air like a helicopter. It has other weird, like strange little functions that don't quite work the same way that planes do. And from my understanding, they're kind of dangerous because if they stutter or if they stall, there's not really too much you could do about it. But that's just on my basic understanding of gyroplanes. If anyone has any more information, please feel free to put it in the comments below. But definitely something that would be quite interesting to own, especially during 1939. But once again, as we have established earlier, Bruce Wayne does not seem to be short on money. Now, continuing with the story, we move to a quite humorous panel where we see Batman flying over the city in the Batgyro with people, rightfully so, panicking. Even one man concluding that they may be getting invaded by aliens, which I guess is relevant for the time, seeing as War of the Worlds, the original broadcast, occurred, I think, a year ago in that timeline, 1938. So it's not the craziest thing for people to believe. From there, the Batman eventually catches up with the cruise that Julie Madison is on and sets the Batgyro to hover mode and boards the ship with Julie Madison, who is absolutely flabbergasted at the appearance of the Batgyro and, of course, the Batman himself. But it seems Batman is not alone, as the Master Monk has appeared on the ship as well, and using his strange powers tries to hypnotize the Batman. But Batman, using his bat-like fortitude, breaks free from the spell, and acting quickly escapes from the ship using his Batgyro. But unable to leave his fiancée alone on the boat with the monk, Batman continues his pursuit to Paris. What occurs next is an absolutely fantastic series of events, in which we see Batman land in Paris to begin his search for Julie Madison. He searches through the entire city to find her in a small house, but what Batman wasn't expecting was that there was also a massive gorilla in the house that proceeds to attack the Batman. But Batman, using his quick-like mobility, dodges the mad ape, but falls into another trap, this one being a net-like contraption that suspends him over a pit of vile snakes. We then see the Master Monk, who appears to gloat over his soon success over the Batman. But Batman, not one to be defeated, flips the Batarang in a flash, which zips around the room, hitting a light suspended over the Batman, dropping glass as well as the Batarang back into the Batman's palm, allowing to cut himself free from the net trap. With his newfound freedom, the Batman then pursues the Mad Monk through what seems to be a castle-like structure, and just when he thinks he has the strange creature cornered, it's once again another trap, pitting the Batman against the massive gorilla once again. Our heroic figure, knowing that he can't defeat the gigantic primate, uses a conveniently placed suspension hook to escape the trap, and in turn escape from the compound, allowing him to return to his Batgyro. But his night is not over, as he sees a car racing in the direction of Hungary and quickly pursues the vehicle in his Batplane. Batman, acting without concern for himself, jumps onto the top of the car and, using a gas pellet, causes the vehicle to crash, And lucky for him, the car was carrying none other than his fiancée, Julie Madison. Batman then takes his soon-to-be wife and climbs into the Batgyro, lamenting that this is not over as he proceeds to Hungary to face off against the Mad Monk and his werewolves in our next issue. So, quite a lot happened. Man, it does fall apart a little bit there at the end because it's just trying to get so much fitted in. Obviously, too much that they couldn't even conclude the story in this issue. Where to begin? This is the first Bat epic, in my opinion. And when I say that, there's going to be future Batman stories that will take Batman out of his city and sometimes maybe to a different town. But other times there are going to be these globe-trotting stories where we're going to actually see Batman have to go to multiple different locations in the pursuit of a villain. It's kind of the weird opposite end to the street aspect level of Batman. What we kind of started with, this mysterious vigilante hiding in the dark, defeating criminals, now to what seems to be almost borderline international super spy minus the spying part. He has gadgets, he has the ability to traverse the world, and now more importantly, he's facing a villain that is not even from this world, possibly. It kind of goes in hand with what I was saying in the previous issues, that this is the escalation of Batman. And while I think it's going to be a while before we're going to have another adventure on this level, it is going to set a precedent for what really can be done with Batman if you want to push the limits of the concept. But with that being said, I don't want to get too much into the story itself because it's only halfway done and I want to have something to talk about for the following issue. But I do want to comment on Julie Madison, just because while there isn't much to her character, it does expose that there is more to Batman. Bruce Wayne is a man who seems to have a life outside of the Cape and crusading. What exactly that life looks like, it still seems to be a mystery. We don't know too much about Bruce Wayne at the end of the day. So, at least for me, when we get these little glimpses into his humanity, I personally find it really fascinating. What else? Oh, there's so much in this issue. Very action-packed. I guess the last thing I do want to comment on is the definite improvement in art from the previous one. The color's just more solid, and while the action does get a little bit confusing at times with the way it just rapidly switches from scene to scene, I still think a lot of the motion, the action, just the overall presentation is just, as stated earlier, an improvement from the previous issue. And it just has this really energetic feel to it that I can't quite explain. It might be the giant gorilla, it might be the gyroplanes, but it was just a very exciting issue. With that in mind, what are your thoughts? Do you have any opinions on the Mad Monk? How about Julie? Do you think it reveals the humanity of Batman? That there's more to the man under the cowl? Or, just whatever your thoughts are. Love to hear them. And I guess that leaves us with our spoiler for next issue, which... Batman fights werewolves? Thank you for listening.